Hi, my name is Grandmaster Chuck Beiersdorfer. I want to welcome you to the KWAhnDo Show. Today we are going to interview Grandmaster Ron Hickey. Grandmaster Hickey is a 8th degree black belt in Taekwondo Kukiwan style. He has been around martial arts as long as I have, so it'll be an interesting conversation. One thing I would like to point out is that if you like what we're doing here, please like and subscribe. That would help us promote this show. Grandmaster Hickey, what age did you start training in the martial arts?
Well, thanks, first of all, for having me here for this interview.
You're quite welcome.
And I started in 1973, August of 73.
Okay, and you started in what particular style?
At that time, it was Korean karate, or Tang Soo Do, as you know, under Grandmaster Ron at College Hill on Hamilton Avenue. That's where I began, and pretty much stayed at, in his schools, various locations, but the same school for the rest of the time.
And Grandmaster Ron is Grandmaster Kyung-Wan An, who is our mutual grandmaster.
Correct.
And Grandmaster Ron has been around in the U.S. since 1967. So we both had the pleasure of being trained by him from a young age till now. He's still both of our mentors. In martial arts, what was the drive that made you decide to train?
Well, it's funny how it happened. Of course, I was watching the Bruce Lee movies and that really attracted me. But even with that, even though I was interested, I didn't know if I wanted to commit because I wasn't sure if I could stay with it. I didn't stay with any other sports that I played long enough to get that proficient. But after seeing some of the Bruce Lee movies, and then I had a little brother-in-law that was taking lessons from Grandmaster Ron, I took him back and forth to class for probably the better part of a year. So I got to see a lot, but obviously I wasn't training then. I was just a spectator. But I went to a tournament in Dayton, Ohio, and at that tournament I was inspired by watching a gentleman by the name of Mike Warren, who was fighting that day. And when I saw him fight, or not fight, but spar, compete, I saw something like I'd never seen in my life, the precision and the accuracy of his technique and the tenacity. But more than that, between the fights, his relationship with his instructor, Grandmaster Ki-Hwan Kim from Washington, D.C., the humility that I saw in that student-instructor relationship, that intrigued me more than anything physical that I saw. So 2 days later, I went in and signed up with Grandmaster Ron, and the rest is history.
Oh, wow, wow. And that was in 1973.
Yes.
So we're talking 50 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
A little over 51 or so.
That's 51 years. That's a lot. That's a long time. When Mike Warren was showing you that dedication to his master, you saw that, and that helped you instill that dedication yourself, correct?
Yes. That's what intrigued me, the beauty of that relationship. I see that to a certain extent, between, say, a high school or college athlete and their coach, but for the most part, that's kind of short-lived. I mean, I understand some of them maintain some relationship forever with that coach, but in martial art, it's almost like a surrogate father, your instructor. And that's, to me, that's the way it should be anyway.
And staying, in my opinion and your opinion, I know, staying dedicated to one master is really, really important. Because number one, it tends to strengthen your credibility as opposed to bouncing from different masters, in my opinion. What do you think about that?
Oh, very much so. That's not to say that you can't learn certain things, of course, with the blessing of your own instructor. If you want to delve into some other aspect of martial art, maybe some Tai Chi training or Jiu-Jitsu training or, something like that that's okay with your instructor, I think that's fine.
As long as you have your instructor's blessing.
Yes.
Yes, yes. And how has martial arts affected you and your family and life? We know that it's a burden to some families. Wives don't like it, girlfriends don't like it, husbands don't like it because of our time away. How do you think that is affected?
Well, I think it's affected in a good way, although my wife has always been, since we met, she already knew that Taekwondo was my first love. That's what she always said. So she's been a Taekwondo widow for the 40 plus years that we've been married, that's for sure. But along with that comes the discipline, the self-discipline required, to carry out our daily life and our careers and so forth. Mm-hmm. The discipline to try to keep my body in as good a shape as I can for as long as I can. At age 72, I think I'm hanging in there pretty well, and I attribute that definitely to martial art and to my instructor, who was always on me about, my physical training and so forth. I mean, he was always, telling me, how I should eat, how I should drink,
how you should look,
and that the appearance and the behavior, because I was a young guy in my 20s at that time, and he curbed my behavior a lot,
Yes, and your wife, Debbie, she actually helped with a lot of the Taekwondo functions. I know several of the tournaments she helped with the food and concessions.
Yes, she always loved doing that. She really loved doing that for Master On and for Mrs. On, of course.
And that helped keep her in the fold so that she got to see the excitement that you saw, but from a different angle.
Yes. And many of my students are almost like her kids,
True, true. How do you think martial arts has developed over the years?
Well, that's a good question. I think a lot of it's based on the actual instructor or the actual student. So much is said about, well, this Taekwondo guy can beat up this karate guy, or this MMA guy can beat up the Taekwondo guy, and all that. But it boils down to who the practitioner is and who their instructor is, and how well that they train, and all of that is more important to me than anything else. But as far as the growth of martial art, obviously the numbers don't lie. The size of the organizations, such as the WT and KWAhnDo and the USAT and all the organizations in this world, is very popular. I think to a certain extent, it's maybe, I wouldn't use the phrase watered down, but I think it's evolved to be more appealing to the masses. And especially now, there's a lot of school programs, college and high school and elementary school programs. So you can't teach those type of programs the same way that Grandmaster On taught even at our time.
Correct.
But in the late 60s, I heard it was pretty brutal. It was more like some hardcore, military type training. You're not going to have many students that way. So there has to be some evolution as far as instructors and how you handle your students and how you teach them and how you instruct them.
Speaking of associations, you founded the KWAhnDo Association here in Cincinnati. What year did you found that?
Well, I officially incorporated just as a name for my business, because I was operating a program for the Cincinnati Recreation Commission in College Hill, and I just made an incorporation name so I could, get a bank account and all that. But 10 years down the road, little did I know there would be many, many masters that wanted to be affiliated with me, and the person instrumental in helping me to found it was Master Ron Evans out of Alexandria, Kentucky, and we decided to just utilize that name as our association name. At that time, I believe there was about 8 to 10 master instructors. Now we have, I think, over 20, including a program in San Diego and at the University of Cincinnati, Miami of Ohio, and Mount Washington Rec Center in Cincinnati, and also the Stillwater program in Alexandria is still in existence.
So the name of your school is the College Hill Taekwondo Institute.
That's correct. We're at the College Hill Rec Center, which was built in 2002. We kind of came with the building. I have two outstanding masters that teach with me. They're my partners, Master Vernell Rogers and Master Daryl Curry, and we're there 2 days a week.
And Master Rogers, I believe, is an international referee.
Yes, he's very well known. He travels to other countries at least 3 or 4 times a year, and throughout the U.S. pretty much at least every month, if not twice a month.
And your school at the College Hill Rec Center, that gives a lot of people, a lot of young people, opportunities to come in and train and a good facility.
Yes, our facility's state-of-the-art. We have a very nice floating wood floor, stainless ballet bars and fully mirrored and everything, so it's very comfortable and good facility to train.
That's great. That's great. So I asked you before, how do you feel the direction of martial arts has gone? I want to kind of specifically, you stepped into a little bit about the discipline. In this day and age, it can't be as the way it was when you and I trained under Grandmaster Ron, because it was a little more physical with the instructor's part, and students were trained harder. And the change nowadays is we have to help the students stay with the program.
Right, correct. Our program's a little different because we're not a commercial school, so to speak, although we don't want to drive away students, but we don't have to worry that much about whether we're disciplining them too hard. I mean, we're not ultra disciplinarians, but we do discipline them, and push-ups and that is pretty much an every night occurrence for someone. Some of the students, I joke with them, you must just love push-ups, because you continue the behavior.
And they're getting good at it.
Yes, they're getting strong pectoral muscles from it.
And well, that's important, because in this day and age, it seems like kids are more involved in video games, game show programs, TV programs, things that computers that take their attention away from being physical, whereas I used to go outside and play in the woods or camping or running in the neighborhood. Nowadays they sit on the computers. Have you seen that affect some of the students?
Well, I don't go home with them, but I do get the dialogue from their parents that, yes, I do have, I think any teenage boy is very intrigued by all the video games and that, and the boys and the young ladies are intrigued with all the social media and that sort of thing. But I think because they're at least doing something, all of our students don't do only Taekwondo. Some of them play soccer, baseball, gymnastics. So they're involved in other activities, and then some of our students are going to the private schools and to the high-level academic schools such as Walnut Hills, and they have a lot of study. They have maybe 2 to 4 hours of homework at night, so that doesn't give them much time to sit and play on a video game.
But it seems like the kids who they come to the schools, our school, we've had kids come to our school that wanted to do it, but then when they try to do the jump kicks and the hard kicks, kids say this is hard to do because they see it on their games. They're doing jump, spinning, back wheel kicks. Then they want to try to do it on the floor, and all of a sudden it doesn't work. Well, it's because you got to train to do it.
Right.
And just like I said before, Grandmaster Ron pushed you and I and instilled in us that how we carry ourselves at the school, away from the school, if we went to a public function, Taekwondo function, how we should dress. It was important that we set an example for people that follows his example, how he dressed and carried himself.
True, very true.
In martial arts, you see different styles. If you were to study a different style, what would you study?
Well, I would think what would augment what I do the most would probably be some form of grappling, whether it be jiu-jitsu or judo. That I think that type really augments our style of kicking and punching.
Very true. Judo or any other grappling art? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, BJJ, which is people call it, that's really popular.
Yes.
That's really around, but they're limited in their kicking motions, it seems like. So you think that would be a good way of supplementing or augmenting your program, personal program?
For myself.
Yeah.
Yes, not for my program. I don't want to have, our program is not really set up for that. We're not a padded out floor or anything, so we're not really set up to do that. And I don't think that we really have the right resources or the right students. I don't want to put a little girl with a teenage boy or vice versa.
Right.
That's kind of uncomfortable. You want to be able to match up people of the same gender as much as possible, the same size as much as possible, at least in my opinion.
In martial arts, we see references in a lot of movies. Is there any particular movie that helped you want to train martial arts or want to stay training in the martial arts?
Well, the very first movie for anyone of my generation was Billy Jack. Even though that movie really only contained about a few minutes of actual martial arts, the storyline that went along with the martial art, that influenced me greatly.
With Tom Laughlin, Dolores Taylor.
Right, and was it the Hapkido guy that
Bong Soo-han
that did the actual martial arts stunts, and that was pretty cool.
And that helped inspire you to stay and train.
Well, it inspired me. It was before I trained. I think that movie came out in maybe 71 or 72, something like that. So it was in my head, I was intrigued and fascinated by it, but I didn't start doing it,
What martial arts actor do you like the most?
Oh, definitely Chuck Norris.
And we both had the pleasure of meeting and working with Chuck Norris at one time.
Yes, that's true, but even not thinking of that, just I think his program, his movies are more realistic than any others, and they also normally, they're not just like fighting from beginning to end. There's a storyline, that goes along with it to try to balance the fighting with some type of self-control.
And there's a better connection because didn't Chuck Norris study Tong Soo Do also?
Yes, he was in our system. In fact, Grandmaster Ron was there judging one or two of his exams back in the day, late 60s.
So martial arts in general has helped your life, and you feel it would be a good thing for kids to learn, the parents to learn, and people just to study and try to get themselves more mental discipline?
Oh, certainly. Certainly. I mean, when I began at age 22, if someone would have even told me that, 52 years later, 50 years later, whatever, that I would still be able to kick and punch in some capacity, I would have taken that deal. Don't know if I would have believed it.
True. Because we've changed. We've both changed over the years. We have the wisdom, but I have realized Grandmaster An Kyung-Wan has forgotten more about martial arts than I'll ever learn.
That's a good way of putting it. He's got a lot of knowledge, and sometimes he'll come up with some nugget that you didn't even think of. Where did he get that from?
Where did it comes out of a hat? It's like, okay,
yes.
When did you train that? How did you learn that?
Yes.
So is there anything else you want to add?
No, other than thanks for having me. I appreciate the interview.
It's always a pleasure to have you and other Grandmasters come in on the KWAhnDo Show because we want to get it out there, different aspects of the martial arts. Not just Tong Soo Do, but Judo, Jiu-Jitsu. We want to get more input so that people can see, hey, this is what this person does, this is what this person does, and we can get along. you know. So thank you very much, Grandmaster Hickey, for coming in. And as I usually say, kamsahamnida.
Sanmaneo.
Ooh, you got a shamaneo out of that.